Today on our 2011 Ford F-53 chassis, we're going to be installing SumoSprings Maxim custom helper springs for the rear axle. Part number SSR-187-54-1. These Sumo springs are going to increase ride comfort, decrease sway, and just make it an overall easier effort driving your big RV. As you load up your RV with various gear and people, the springs will help keep it level and distribute the weight evenly across the RV. This is nice when you're going down the road because any crosswinds that would cause your vehicle to sway get absorbed into these, making it much less than it used to be. The dampening effect will help reduce driver fatigue. In case you hit any potholes or uneven road surfaces, it will compress, absorb that load, and make steering effort less than what it was to keep the vehicle straight. So that way when you arrive at your destination after a long drive, you won't be wore out and ready for bed. You'll be ready to enjoy your adventure. It's fairly easy to install. There is some drilling required. Let's show you how to do that now. Before you begin your installation, you'll want to park your RV on a level surface and then use the rear leveling jacks to lift up the rear end of the vehicle. You also want to make sure you have the front wheels chocked on both sides so it doesn't roll when you have the rear end lifted up. Laid out in front of me, we've got all the components we'll need to install one side. Before you begin that installation, we're going to do a little preparation. This is your upper bracket. We'll put it on with the ears facing down and line it up with the two wider space slots on top. Then take two of your smaller chrome bolts and thread it into the top of the Sumo spring. You'll know it's the top of the Sumo spring because it will have 4 slots. The bottom will only have 1 hole. Once both have been threaded in, tighten them down with a 14mm socket. We're now at the driver's side rear tire. Now we've already removed the rear tires for camera purposes so you can see where we're going to be at, although it is not necessary to remove the tire. It will make the job a lot easier to do. However, getting the tire torqued and off can require a very large torque wrench, such as the torque wrench like I have here. If you don't have this, you'll have to install it without taking the wheel off. It's not that hard. I'll give you some tips along the way. We'll then take our lower bracket, which has the small hook on it. The hook will go towards your leaf spring and the bracket will sit in front of the leaf spring. That'll hook around the U-bolt there so you've got the proper location. After you've got it in place, take your long carriage bolts, drop them down through the hole on each side of your leaf spring. Then take your lower bracket, slide it onto each end of the carriage bolts until it mates up with the bottom of your leaf spring. Then thread one of the brass colored nuts onto each carriage bolt. Then tighten them down with a 14mm socket. You want to go back and forth making sure you tighten them evenly. Now you want to work your Sumo spring in. Now I want to line the bottom hole up with the bottom hole in the bracket and thread in one of the small chrome bolts. Once you've got it started, tighten it down with a 9/16 wrench. You now want to take a tape measure and measure from the top of the frame to the center of the lower bolt. You want it to be pretty close to 6 inches. Ours is right at about 6.5. That'll be okay because we can't really go up any higher due to the compartment and framework on our RV here. So a little bit extra going down will be just fine. Just make sure that you're pretty close to even on both sides. We're now going to take a 3/8 inch drill bit and drill out all the holes using the bracket as a template. Now if you couldn't take your wheel off, you can drill these 2 front holes. The wheel won't be in the way, so you can drill those from the outside in using your bracket as a template. Put both of those bolts in, tighten them down, and then you can make a template out of one of the flaps from the cardboard box to line up the 2 bolts on the other side so you can have the appropriate holes and drill it from the inside towards the outside for your other holes. Once you've got the bottom hole drilled out, you'll slide through one of the black bolts and thread one of the brass colored nuts on the other side. I recommend tightening this down and then continuing your drilling. We've already got them all drilled out here, so we drilled next the top hole, and then on the opposite side we drill out the bottom and the top hole. We're not going to drill out the 2 middle holes. After they're all drilled out and you've got your bolt slid through, you'll thread your nuts on the opposite side and you'll tighten them down using a 14mm or 9/16 socket and wrench. Once you've got all your hardware tightened down, repeat this same process on the other side. And that completes our installation of SuperSprings SumoSprings Maxim Custom Helper Springs, part number SSR-187-54-1, on our 2011 Ford F-53 chassis.